Hello everybody, welcome to the show! It's his episode this week, so that's why I'm starting it off.
I'm glad we discussed that before we started.
Yep.
This is part 2 of my soccer game collection. And it's another long one, just to warn you in advance. But when we come back, we do have a couple things that we're going to talk about, including what is backwards compatibility and do the next generation consoles actually have it? But first, here is part 2 of my soccer video game collection. Last week, when we looked at older games, we saw a lot more variety in the types of games that came out on different systems. As we move into the more modern systems, we're going to see a lot of that variety disappear, but we're going to find a lot of interesting variants, and that's actually what I find most interesting about collecting video games. One place you will always find variety with the number one selling soccer franchise is on Nintendo systems, and on the GameCube, you did have some different games still. Now, FIFA, of course, is the number one game, and despite the normal GameCube games that you'd come to expect on the system, I have been able to pick up a few games from overseas, including this European version of Fifa Football 2003, which you can see looks completely different from the US version, which focuses on the men's national team. But as we go through here, you'll see that a lot of the games on the GameCube, as far as FIFA goes, look the same as the ones on PlayStation 2 or on the Xbox, and that's because the GameCube at this point was still trying to go for those same type of fans that were playing on those other systems. But with it being a Nintendo system, Nintendo always goes for the younger audience, and you get fun games like the Sega Soccer Slam. This is one of those games that, again, even if you're not a fan of soccer, you probably saw this game if you had a GameCube. This was considered one of the best on the system. Also on the GameCube, I was able to pick up this International Superstar Soccer 2, which was released in Japan as the J-League Soccer. This is from Konami, and this was the series that they eventually abandoned in order to focus on the Winning 11, which became Pro Evolution Soccer. The super long lifespan of the PlayStation 3 meant a whole lot of FIFA games. And here's where things start to get interesting or crazy when it comes to collecting, depending on how you want to look at it. You had your same FIFA games that you've come to expect on all of the major systems, your release every year, and your World Cup or Road to World Cup, however you want to look at it. You also had the offshoots like FIFA Street and the Euro games, so all of those ways that they would double and triple dip are always available on the PlayStation 3. They just got everything and anything that any system would ever have available. And you can see that they would use the same box art that we've already seen from the other systems. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time showing these off, but these are the boxes that most people know and recognize when they look at the games. If you've played FIFAs, if you are familiar with them, here you can see I do have the European Platinum Hits version of FIFA 11, and it is a little different in England, of course, focusing on players from England. And I do like their greatest hits in the silver box, whereas in the US we got them in the bright red box. I think that silver platinum looks a whole lot better. FIFA 12 with a US player on the front, which probably didn't make it worldwide. And FIFA 13, here it gets kind of interesting. These may look identical at first, but the one on the left actually has a metallic coating to it. If you look, it actually kind of shines and glows a little bit. It's the one on the right just doesn't have. There's almost like a mirror effect. It's a foil stamp that the other one doesn't have. So as a collector, I had to buy both to have both in my collection. That's just the type of collector I am. But otherwise, the packages are identical. You just have that foil stamping that makes it stand apart. FIFA 14 is almost the same thing, except not only do we have some foil stamping, but we also have a Mexican player here. So for those with the Latin American bent here, there's also the notice that it has the Mexican leagues on there, which are in the other version as well. They just wanted to draw attention to it. So for those probably in Arizona, Texas, areas along the Mexican border, that's where you would have found packaging like that. Again, another standard release, World Cup Brazil, standard release for 15. Here comes 16. We've got the usual with Alex Morgan from the women's U.S. national team. But if you live near the Canadian border, you probably wanted the Canadian national team. Maybe you wanted the Canadian national team. I don't know. But they put a female player from the Canadian team on there for you. And then, of course, 17 was the standard cover that everybody got. And then that's the last of the real FIFAs on PlayStation 3, because 18 started the Legacy Edition, where it's the exact same game, just with new uniforms and nothing special. Just new kits, maybe updated rosters, but otherwise it's the exact same game engine, the exact same game modes. Everything is the same as the year before, but you got the new outfits, and that's kind of your consolation prize if you haven't updated to a PS4 at this point. Of course, FIFA's not the only game in town. Pro Evolution Soccer still chugging along. We've got some of those here on PlayStation 3. Unfortunately, I don't have as many of these as I have of FIFA's. These are a little harder to find just because not as many people bought them. And so if you're going back and trying to buy some of these used, older, they are a little more difficult to track down. But I do enjoy having them, and yeah, I do actually go back and play some of these, and people find it odd that I will put in a PlayStation 3 game and play soccer teams from 8 years ago, but that's my jam, so that's what I do with those. Now, there was a game called Pure Football that tried to be a little more of what it says authentic soccer, which means basically Volta. If you played FIFA last year, you know that Volta was a new big deal for the franchise. It added this street ball version of soccer, and that's what this was. Pure Football was that game before FIFA ever thought to add it in there. So if you want to play a version of that on the PlayStation 3, you can. So the PlayStation 3 not only had a ton of FIFA games, but there were lots of other games as well. And it's a great system to have if you just want to play a lot of games, regardless of if they're soccer or not. There's a huge library of games, and a lot of them you can find pretty cheap secondhand. But I find that because I love soccer, it's a great system to collect for. The Vita, on the other hand, did not get the same quality of releases. Now, the first game was actually really good, FIFA Soccer. And again, they didn't put a year on it, which is weird. FIFA Soccer 13 was good because it was the same game, just with some updated stuff. And then when they got to 14, they said, yeah, okay, we admit it is Legacy Edition. There were no notable changes. And when they got to 15 again, it was just the Legacy Edition. There were, again, no real notable changes, just changes to the kits, which are the uniforms, and some of the rosters. So really, it was just one game released 4 times, and only in the last 2 did they admit that they were just releasing the same game again, which is a shame. The first game was really good, and if you grab any of them, it's a great game, but they quadruple dipped on this one. Now, the Wii was a system that sold tremendously well, but its lack of power made it difficult to figure out what to do with. EA just couldn't decide what to do with FIFA on the system. In 2009, they developed a brand new game, All Play, which made it 8-on-8 special match mode. The idea was to make it easier, a little more friendly, but people just didn't go for it. They didn't want that. They wanted the real FIFA experience, and the idea of this kid-friendly version just didn't go over compared to what you got in the previous version. Now, the previous one did add a foosball table, which was neat, and a lot of people liked it, but they really just wanted to play regular FIFA. So they tried bringing regular FIFA, and the game engine just struggled. They couldn't find a good way to bring the game to the system. They kept stripping it down and stripping it down and stripping it down, and each year as it got better and better on other consoles, it just seemed to get worse and worse. So they kept trying to find other gimmicks. What are some other things that they could do? One year they came up with the idea of a Fifa Town. You basically created a little village. You had a sim-like experience of creating this FIFA village, and it was not good. FIFA just really struggled on the Wii, and it eventually became one of those kind of forgotten about games. It became another legacy edition system where the games that you got year after year were the same games, just with new skins, updated kits, and was otherwise forgotten about because the Wii just could not keep up. Of course, as FIFA struggled to find its footing on the Wii, Pro Evolution Soccer used this as a way to brand itself as the real soccer game on the Wii. They tried to make every effort to be the actual game that you would play on other systems played on the Wii as well. There were some fiddling around with motion controls, but it wasn't the number one priority. For the most part, the idea was if you wanted to play real soccer, you would play Pro Evolution Soccer on the Wii. Of course, Nintendo had their own game, Mario Strikers Charged. Again, this is one of those games that even if you're not a fan of the game, you may have played this. This was a very popular game. It was very fun, and one of those that even my son will play, even though he hates sports. And of course, you had games like Kids International Soccer, which tried to make a kid-friendly game, but let's face it, nobody really wanted to play. If you had the choice between Kids Sports International Soccer and Mario Strikers Charged, which would you choose? Well, considering that Mario Strikers Charged is a Wii Select, it probably tells you all you need to know about which one sold more. The Xbox 360 was another system with a long lifespan and a lot of games, and here you can see Pro Evolution Soccer 2007, which was a rebranding of the Winning 11 line, and you can see here it has both names, although Winning 11 is very tiny on the box. But Winning 11 Pro Evolution Soccer 2007, try saying that 10 times very fast. Nonetheless, though, it was great to see that the series was here on the Xbox 360, and they had quite a few of these. And you can see, again, a lot of these covers will look familiar, and that is, again, standard for what you're going to find in our modern era of gaming. It's the same look over and over as companies brand and keep going. Although Champions League, Pro Evolution Soccer had it, and that was a big deal for them. But those weren't the only games that you could find. Champions League, of course, being an important part of EA as well. EA did it under the UEFA label. And then, of course, they also had the Euro games under the UEFA label, so they were able to double dip there, as well as the FIFA Street, which also came to the Xbox 360 system. I only have one of those, even though I believe all three of them were available on the system. They're hard to find in the case. That's another thing about collecting. Now, I was sent this FIFA 10 and Pro Evolution Soccer 2010 demo disc from overseas. A fan of the show actually sent this to me, and this is a great thing for my collection. This is the type of thing that we didn't get in the US because, of course, the games are not as big here. But this was, I believe, from Germany, and this has demos for both games that came out this year. So even though I don't have a European European system and I can't play it, again, this is a fun thing to add to my collection, even though you can see that FIFA got much higher billing. They are the artwork on the cover, they got a much bigger spot on the back, but having both on one demo disc is a neat thing to see and not the type of thing that you would normally find in the United States. Now, there were plenty of FIFA games on the system, starting with the Road to the World Cup, and then, of course, the World Cup. And again, these are going to look the same as the ones that we've seen before. And we're just going to briefly flip through a whole bunch of these because, yes, these are the same games that I have on other systems that I bought again. But we're going to see some variants starting to appear, just like we saw on PlayStation 3 here in a minute. As we go through these games, you're going to see that, again, here's a shiny version of FIFA 13 with that foil stamp cover. And then this FIFA 14 again with the foil stamping. And then our World Cup game so that they could double dip in a year, give you your regular game and your World Cup. And then in 15, here we've got a guy from MLS, so Seattle Sounders. We've got the Ultimate version. So you could buy the regular version or the Ultimate version that came bundled with a bunch of in-game stuff. The games themselves, of course, are the same. You had an insert inside the case that had a code that you would redeem, but it does make for different packages, which are variations, so therefore different collectibles for my system. And again, FIFA 16, you've got that US version and the Canadian version here. And again, a deluxe edition with a bunch of extra stuff that you could redeem for the game on the inside. You get to FIFA 17, Marco Reus, good to see him here yet again. And then FIFA 18 Legacy Edition, just like PlayStation 3. If you haven't upgraded yet, you're not getting the new game. You're just getting updated uniforms, updated rosters, and that's it. It's the exact same game being re-released. But you could still technically play the new game. So, the Xbox 360, again, the long lifespan brought a lot of games, including a lot of soccer games and those fun variants. The Wii U is the easiest system to collect for. It had FIFA Soccer 13. No Pro Evolution Soccer, no Mario Strikers Charged, no Sega, nothing. Just FIFA Soccer 13, and you've got the entire run of soccer games on the Wii U. Ooh boy. The Nintendo Switch will be our first modern system we look at, and they got FIFA 18, which was actually a lot of fun. It was a really good release. And then we got FIFA 19. Something started to seem a little peculiar about FIFA 19. It didn't look all that different from FIFA 18, but it was updated. It did have some new features and stuff, so okay, it's legit. But then we got FIFA 20. Yeah, they made it clear it was Legacy Edition. You only got the updated kits and rosters. So they've already given up on Switch. 21 is out, and it's, again, Legacy Edition, and I'll be picking it up here in the next couple weeks, I'm sure. I also picked up Street Power Soccer. It's a new soccer franchise that adds a street ball version of soccer with a lot of tricks, a lot of over-the-top, kind of an EA Big type feel to the game of soccer on the Switch. So you do have that available if you want something a little different. And then there's also the new Captain Tsubasa. I can't pronounce this thing. It's the same game that I actually have in Japanese on the Super Nintendo that I cannot play. This one, though, has been localized into English. It's also available on the Xbox One and the PS4, and I'll probably be picking it up on those systems as well because it is a soccer game and it is available, but I bought it for the Switch just because I felt like the Switch needed a little more love considering how much hopelessness it has now that FIFA has officially abandoned it. And now the Xbox One and Pro Evolution Soccer. The franchise made it, of course, to the Xbox One, where it has sold and done very well. The game plays fantastic on the Xbox One, and you can see over the years it's got some great releases on there, although Pro Evolution Soccer 2018 had a little oopsie. They put Neymar Jr. on the cover, and within weeks of the game's release, he was transferred to Paris Saint-Germain and was no longer on Barcelona. Pro Evolution Soccer 2020, they changed the name slightly to eFootball, and someone sent it to me digitally, so I have it, but not a physical copy. I need to pick one up. 2021, though, is released here as the season update, essentially Legacy Edition, very similar to what EA does. The difference is, though, that Konami decided that they were going to release it as a half-price title. So instead of charging you $60 for what is essentially Legacy Edition, they're selling you this update for $30. Now, some people say $30 is still too much, but hey, that sure beats paying the $60 that EA charges for a Legacy Edition title on another console. So I'm quite happy paying the $30 for these season update editions on systems, because that's a price that's much better for the product you're getting. Pro Evolution Soccer 2018 also came out with this Legendary Edition, which had a keychain and a window sticker. So you can put the sticker on your car and put your car keys on the keychain, and then that way you've always got Pro Evolution Soccer with you when you travel. But the Legendary Edition also came with something else that was a little different. As you can see, it's in this big box, and it lays out here. Of course, you get all the download stuff that's in the like Champion Edition or whatever it was called. But it also came with this canvas bag. This drawstring bag, of course, is branded with the Pro Evolution Soccer logo. You've got the crest here up at the top with 2 stars, because I guess they think they won 2 championships. I'm not sure what that's all about, but it's just a simple little canvas tote bag. It's nothing all that special, but considering it's a pack-in with the version of the game, it just makes it one of those fun collectibles to add to my collection. 2019 also saw Pro Evolution Soccer release this David Beckham edition. I've never opened mine simply because I had the regular version that I bought and installed first, and I wasn't all that concerned with the downloadable content, but it basically gives you this special version of David Beckham that was scanned in. Apparently they had him stand in a booth and they scanned him from head to toe to put him in the game. It also comes with the Steelbook here that you can use to put the game to display on your shelf. I've never really been a fan of Steelbooks because they stand out from the regular ones. They don't look like the regular games on your case, and then you've got an empty game case that you have to store somewhere. But nonetheless, it's another variant, so I had to buy it. Of course, the big dog on the Xbox One is the big dog everywhere, FIFA. And FIFA 14 is pretty much just your regular standard edition, except it's got the Legends, which is only available on Xbox. It was also on 360. But then with FIFA 15, we start to get some of these variants, where again, you've got the Seattle Sounders for the US edition, or Chicharito here for the Mexican edition. So for those in the Latin American markets, they've got that. Then we've got the FIFA 16 with Alex Morgan for the US players, or the Canadian version for those living in the northern United States. There's also the Deluxe edition here with Alex Morgan. So there might be another deluxe version for the Canadian market. I need to see if I can find one of those as well. Then we've got FIFA 17 with Marco Reus, and I've got this collector's version deluxe edition, but we'll get back to that in a minute. And then when we get to FIFA 18 here, we've got Ronaldo, we've got the standard version of FIFA 18, then we've got this Ronaldo edition that had the version of him that you could redeem and add to your team as a special download here. So that was cool if you wanted to play with him online. Then, of course, we had the World Cup Russia 2018 edition that had the downloads and exclusive stuff for your Ultimate Team that you could download, and then the second cover art version of him in the World Cup outfit. So yes, 4 versions of FIFA 18 that are all basically the same, because you would get those updates just by playing online. FIFA 19 had the standard edition, and then I also have the Champions edition here. At least the artwork was completely different, so you could tell that it was, a different version of the game, not just a banner at the top. FIFA 20 here, this is the Champions edition. I need to, of course, find the regular ones as well. But again, when you find a variant like that, you're able to grab a hold of it. That's the first thing I go for, because I know the standard editions are going to be easier to find as time goes by. Now, going back just a minute to FIFA 17, this deluxe edition starts as the standard deluxe edition. It has a bunch of extra download stuff. This is what we would call like the Champions edition, maybe the Ultimate edition today. It's the standard version of the game with extra downloadable content. But this one came from Best Buy, and as a Best Buy exclusive, it came boxed with this scarf. For those of you who follow soccer or European football, you know that scarf culture is a big deal. A lot of people collect scarves, and I have a bunch of those as well. But this one came with an exclusive EA Sports one, and because it's for EA to celebrate their company and to celebrate how great they are and how wonderful they are for making all these FIFA games, I've never felt the need to open it and show off my loyalty to EA, because frankly, let's face it, EA is the devil. They just happen to have a good license here. Now, jumping over to the PlayStation 4, Pro Evolution Soccer. I only have a couple of those. I need to actually get out and track down more of those to add back to the collection. The PS4 actually didn't get until pretty recently to get into PSVR. But when it comes to the eFootball 2020, I have 2 versions here that may look identical here on the front. But when you flip them around and look at the back, you will find that the text on the back is actually different. And the reason for that is one of these is for the Latin American market and one of these is for the US market. Now, the thing about these games is that they are actually region free, so they will work anywhere in the world that you've got a system that is able to hook up to a TV and play them. So they were able to release the same game with the different language packages on the disc, but when it came to putting them into the case and printing the actual inserts, they just made new inserts for different parts of the world. So I just decided, what the heck, I'll buy this Latin American version and throw it into the collection, because it's a version that most people are never going to see here in the United States, and it just adds something a little fun to add to my collection. And once again, I have the David Beckham edition of Pro Evolution Soccer 2019, identical to the Xbox One. It's the regular version of the game with the Steelbook and the downloadable code, except on the PS4, I actually installed this version and redeemed the code because, like I said, I got my PlayStation 4 fairly recently in the last couple years, and so this is the main version of Pro Evolution Soccer 2019 that I played, and so, it was kind of nice to kick some butt using David Beckham. Now, the regular FIFA games on PlayStation 4 have the same weird and wacky kind of stuff that you find on the Xbox One. You've got, again, these Ultimate Editions, deluxe versions that have extra downloadable stuff that are packaged in there. You do have versions that'll have the Canadian teams or Mexican players. You've got FIFA 18 here. I do have the regular edition, the Ronaldo edition. Then we've got the World Cup edition. And again, a lot of this is the same stuff. It's just a different package. And for me, a different package means it's a different version I need to buy. We do have FIFA 19, the regular version, and then FIFA 19 was re-released with a new cover, and they added some downloadable stuff to get more people interested. And then this 2-pack with Madden and FIFA 19 again. So I bought the same game a third time in the same year because I'm that guy. Then we have the Champions Edition, and I bought that too because I'm also that guy. And again, this comes with a bunch of extra downloadable stuff. Then we had FIFA 20. And FIFA 20 is the same as Xbox One. So we have that there. And then FIFA 21, the new one, I got it first on PS4 just because. For no real reason, I decided to go for it first on PS4. I'll be picking it up on the other systems here in the next few weeks. But I do enjoy playing these games. And even though people will say it's the same game over and over, as you can see, that doesn't bother me because I literally will buy the same game over and over, especially if it comes in a slightly different package. And as you can see, this one isn't even in the case because it's currently sitting in the system, and I've been playing it and even streaming it on Twitch. So make sure you check out my Twitch channel, plug. But yes, here's the Ultimate Edition, so I not only need to buy it on other systems, but I need to buy the regular editions as well. Now, I mentioned that I don't use the Steelbooks in any way for storing my games, but that doesn't mean I haven't accrued some over the years. So Pro Evolution Soccer had a Steelbook here, and then I have a bunch of FIFAs, starting with FIFA 17, and then FIFA 18, and then FIFA 19. I actually have two of these because they gave me one for PS4 and also one for the Xbox One. And then FIFA 20, I have one of those as well. So again, I don't use them, but I have them and I consider them part of my collection, even if they are empty cases. I also snagged a bunch of these cards. These are the downloadable point cards and whatever. And, you know, if I can grab some of them every once in a while, why not? I'll just take them and throw them on the shelf. There's something there to just add a little bit of color to the shelf and to have something extra to look at. I also grabbed one of these GameStop flyers when FIFA 20 first came out. I'm not a real big fan of Eden Hazard or Real Madrid, but, you know, again, it's just something to add to the collection. But the real neat thing, I think, is this. FIFA 20 for the Ultimate Team released a jersey, and I grabbed one of these jerseys even though it's a size L, which I will never fit into in my life. This thing for Ultimate Team just looked incredible, and so it's the version that you can unlock in the game. They made this for real and sold this in stores, and I decided I just had to have one. So that counts as part of my collection too. Yes, I have a couple of these too. These are video games, right? These count. So yes, I collect a lot of soccer games. And if you're not into soccer games, you might think that that's really weird. But you know what? People who are into soccer games, they also think I'm pretty weird. But you know, my wife loves me, and she hasn't left me yet, even though this corner of our living room keeps getting bigger and bigger and more packed with product. But it's one of those things that I'm just so fascinated with. I play these games all the time. It's not uncommon for me to hook up an old system or to, you know, drag out an old TV so I can hook up an old system and play one of these old games. My kids think I'm nuts. People at game stores can't believe that I'm buying this stuff. And every time I post a picture of how big my collection has gotten on Reddit, people freak out. Even those in other countries who have had way more releases and more franchises like the Football Manager line and things that we've never even seen in the US. But it's what I collect. It's what I love.
All right, and we're back. And as I was talking about, scarves are a big part of the soccer or football culture.
Football, actually.
So I do have a bunch, and there are some in the background of the shot hanging up on the rack back there.
Sure are.
You may have seen some of those in the past. But one of the things that when it comes to the video games, I was talking about in the video were the Steelbooks. And these are metal cases that you can put your games in. Also a lot of Blu-ray movies, some collectible DVDs came in Steelbooks. And so the idea was you can use these as replacements for your regular cases to put your game and booklet in, and then you have a special case that goes on your shelf. And I never use these. These just sit as empty cases on the shelf because I always keep my regular game cases. I don't really understand the fascination behind Steelbooks. I don't really know why some people choose to replace them. I mean, like in this one, for instance, the FIFA 18, I have some of these, if you bought the digital versions of the cards, I have some of those digital versions of the cards in here.
One of those.
No. But these are, just here is like to have something to store in there. But otherwise, like, I don't understand what the thrill is of these things. And I don't know, like, am I the only person?
If I could play devil's advocate for a moment.
Every day?
Yeah. It basically allows you to have something different on your shelf. Like, if there's a game you really like, you can have it stand out. Like, it can be like one of your prized pieces. It could be one of the
Okay, but I mean, you could sell a collector's version in a box like this. My problem is it comes. It's like when you buy a toy and it comes with a bunch of accessories. You take it out of the package, and then you have all these loose accessories with no place to put them. You buy a game. It comes with a steelbook. You go, oh, cool. If you're going to take everything out of the case, you take the game out. You put the booklet in. But then now you have this game case with the paper insert. You just put it on the shelf next to it, like what? Or because I hate the thought of people throwing away game cases.
Oh yeah, don't do that. If you're gonna get rid of them, send them to us. We'll find something to do with them.
I mean, that's when it comes to collecting video games. That's one of the biggest problems. A lot of times, especially if you buy them online or you go to a place like GameStop, a lot of times you'll see it sitting on the shelf and you pick it up, you take it to the counter. And then they turn around and pull one out of the drawer that's just their generic paper case. Our cat is attacking the tripod over there. That's what keeps happening. That's great. Thanks, Tuttle.
This is why the dog is better.
But anyway, you think you're buying the full game, and they pull out one that's just their paper insert that they've written the name of the game on, and they hand that to you, and it's like, no, I picked that one off the shelf because I want the full game case.
Is there a single person out there who's like, ooh, a GameStop case? I want this one more than the actual art.
Well, I don't understand. Like, I understand there are people that like to carry their games around sometimes. Like, maybe you've made your system portable and you travel with it. It makes a little more sense with like Game Boy or PSP or something like that.
The Switch.
The Switch, sure. But I mean, are you throwing away your cases? Like, really? Like do you buy a Switch game and you open it up and you take out that game chip and you put it in your carrier and then you toss the plastic case? Like are you really doing that when it comes to something like an Xbox One, PlayStation 4? Are you really taking your games out of the case and putting them in like a game organizer, a booklet thing with all the little pockets, and then throwing away the cases just so all your games are in an organizer? I just don't understand that.
No,
that really makes no sense to me.
Like, I quite enjoy physical digital games. I absolutely do enjoy physical games. I absolutely understand the appeal. I just like having everything digital. Like, if there's a game I want to play, I don't have to like, where's the game case? Where is it? I'll click the button. There we go. We're in.
Right. Well, but I'll take it to the next step though. Like, if you bought a game on Steam, like you play PC games. Let's face it, it's Steam. Most of your games are on Steam. If you played a game and you really enjoyed it, there was something like a Hat in Time.
Yeah.
And then they say, hey, we're going to release a physical version.
Then I'll want it, yeah.
Yeah, like a limited run games or something like that. You might buy that physical version just to have a collector's piece to go with it. So, like, I can understand that there's some stuff that it's only released digitally, and then they might later on release a physical copy, and you might buy one just to have the collectible.
Actually, there is a game that I really enjoy that's getting a physical release called Crosscode. We did a small little playthrough of it, of the first hour or so. Here on this channel, but
it was our non-episode of Video Game Losers.
Yeah. But I've been playing it a lot off camera since it's on Xbox Game Pass, and I love it. I'm actually working on a video for it right now. The script is about 5 pages in, and I'm only about halfway through the game that I've played through. So
Wow.
it's going to be a big one. But yeah, I enjoy the game, and it's getting a physical release. I've put on my Christmas wish list. Hey.
What?
What? But yeah, it's one of those games where it's like, I do want a physical version of it, but I already have it digitally, so I'm not super upset if I don't get a physical version. Like, if there's a game I've wanted to pick up that then gets a physical release, then I may be a bit more inclined to pick it up, like...
Well, and Steam also makes a difference, because a lot of times games on Steam you're buying for $3, $4. You buy something like the Humble Bundle, and you pay $10 and you get like 30 games or something, like a bunch of random stuff, whatever. So that's a little different, because in that it's more like you're buying the ecosystem more than you're targeting a lot of specific games, although you will, here and there, buy specific games. But there's a lot of times that you're just on Steam and stuff's on sale. They do like the midsummer sale or whatever, and you're just kind of scrolling through and it's like 95% off. It's 98 cents. And you're like, yeah, whatever, 98 cents. I'll buy it.
I have about 18 things on my wish list, yeah.
Yeah, so, because I've got hundreds of games on Steam, and I haven't played hardly any of them.
That's why I like the Epic Games Store. Yes, I said it. Because they have all these free games, and I found a lot of games I wouldn't have really thought about before through the game being free, and me just like, sure, I like collecting games, I like having stuff to look at.
Right.
So, like I have a few installed I've never even played. I've just been like, I'll get around to it someday.
But yeah, when it comes to buying games, like for instance, specifically with my soccer games, these are games I'm collecting. So I see this as something a little different, because I am collecting these. I am saving these. I'm not trading these back in. These are not going back to GameStop at any point. And it's also not something that's tied to my account only, because I do like having the physical representations of them in the real world as pieces. And as we went through this week, there were a lot of variants that I was going through and showing. The fact that you would have, in some parts of the United States, you've got a player from Major League Soccer, and in other parts you have a player from the Mexican Liga MX. Because of where they're going to sell in the United States. So it focuses more on one or the other. The same way in some parts they would have a player from the women's national team or the Canadian women's national team, depending on where they're selling it in the United States. So of course I buy a copy of each because it's a variant. So I'm collecting them. It goes beyond just the fact that I buy the game, I play the game, and it goes on the shelf. It goes a little deeper than that. But as far as people that are just buying games, I've just never understood that thing about taking the game and throwing away the packaging. Even when it comes to something like the Game Boy Advance or the DS, there are so many people. I remember being in GameStop and seeing people trading in a big stack of Game Boy Advance games in the cardboard boxes, and the employees pulling out the cartridge, setting it aside, taking the box with the instructions and throwing it in the trash.
No!
And all they were doing was just trading in the cartridge and throwing away the packaging. And it's like, nowadays I would kill for that packaging. Like, I should have just stood there and just taken them every day, I had a friend who worked there for a while. One of the things he would do is just save all the booklets. So I do have a stack of booklets, because that's kind of handy to have sometimes. And a bunch of them I gave to Killen, and Killen had them in a store because people would come and trade in the cartridge. So he'd pull out the booklet, so people would come buy the game. At least they'd have the booklet to go with it. They could get the instructions. But it's just, I don't know. That's just so bizarre to me. I just don't understand it.
I would much rather have a game with a case than just a game. Like, there are a few things we have, like, a carrying case, but it's like, you're not going to be playing the same game on the same console forever. You're going to swap them out now and then. And especially if you have, like, cartridges or discs, you need something to put them in when you swap them out of the case.
Sure.
So then if you throw away the box that they're in, now you have nothing to put them in to put on the shelf.
Right, because your carrying case only has so many spots that you can put them in. Right, and that's a problem we're running into with our Switch.
Yeah.
Is we have so many games, now we've got 2 game carriers for our Switch games, because there's one that's built into what we carry the Switch, and now we have a second one that we're filling with the little cartridges. So anyway, yeah, there's that. So anyway, that's all for that.
Although we do have an announcement from our sponsor.
Oh, we have a sponsor?
Our sponsor for the week is us.
Oh.
We live stream on Twitch. I try to do it at least 3 times a week. He does it whenever he wants to. But go follow us. We promise you it'll be worth our time. There are good fun and laughs happening.
On yours. Mine is killing zombies.
He doesn't have a mic.
No, I have a mic. I'm doing a playthrough right now where I'm not using the mic at all. I'm just letting the game sounds be the whole game. Because honestly, when I play, I'm not talking to myself. I'm playing it as if I'm just playing for myself, and it just happens to be broadcasting. In the future, I plan on doing ones where I'm talking, but the problem is there are so many people. I watch other people that do it, and I don't want to steal like their ideas and their bits and whatever. Excuse me. So I want to get a little more familiar with playing it, with people watching it, whatever, before I get into doing that, because I don't want to just come off as a clone of some of the other people I watch who play 7 Days to Die. Yeah.
And I do a lot of jokes. I mainly do Team Fortress 2 and, what is it, A Hat in Time Modded with mods. So if you're interested in any of those 2 games. But I also am doing a playthrough of Peggle right now. I'm also doing Minecraft Hardcore.
Hardcore?
One life. You die, it's it, game over.
Oh, okay. But permadeath.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm a variety streamer. I don't just stream one game. So yeah, come check it out. I stream a lot of stuff. Maybe you'll see one you like. I don't stream soccer games though.
I did stream some FIFA on my Twitch, and had a little problem. They had to mute the audio because I forgot about the music that always plays in the FIFA games. But yeah. So anyway, there's that. Now, when it comes to the next generation consoles. We talked about the next generation consoles a couple months ago at this point. The dog is crawling around on our stuff there. Curly? No.
He's going to mess with the camera.
The PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, and we talked about, they were talking about emulation at the time. And PlayStation wasn't sure what emulation they were going to go with. They're thinking at least PS4, but they might do some earlier. Xbox was saying, "Hey, we're gonna have or backwards compatibility. Yeah. Backwards compatibility is what they were calling it. We're gonna have backwards compatibility with everything." Xbox is saying backwards compatibility all the way back to the original Xbox. And PlayStation saying we're going to have backwards compatibility with PlayStation 4, maybe PlayStation 3, PlayStation 2, we're not sure, whatever. And we were like, great, this is great, because I collect games. We collect games. This corner behind the cameras over here, this corner of our living room is all physical games, almost floor to ceiling, 10 feet high.
That is actually almost to ceiling.
So half of it's soccer games, but nonetheless, they are all physical games. So the fact that they would have backwards compatibility is great. I would love to be able to, instead of using the PlayStation 2 that's set up upstairs, or digging out the PlayStation 3 that's set up in my daughter's room, or the PlayStation that's down in the basement.
Wait. Libby gets both the Wii and the PS3?
Yeah. I
get a GameCube.
Yeah.
Okay. Alright then.
But anyway, so they're saying backwards compatibility, and they kept saying backwards compatibility over and over, backwards compatibility. Now, as the systems are getting ready to release here in the next few weeks, they've changed their tune a little bit.
Oh.
Sony, you actually read up on this right before we went live. Sony, they're saying that they are going to have some PlayStation 4 games available for download, is what it looks like, from the PlayStation Store when they launch on PS5. Some of them will unlock if you put in your PlayStation 4 disc. It will download the PlayStation 5 digital version onto your PS5, and you'll be able to play the PS5 version.
They did say they're going to be going through and adding more as time goes on, it looks like, as well.
Right. So, like, for instance, FIFA. I have FIFA on the FIFA 21 on PS4. If we buy a PS5, I'll put in that disc of FIFA 21. It'll download the PS5 version of FIFA 21, and I can play the PS5 version with my physical disc of PS4 FIFA 21. But it's not going to be, it looks like, where you're going to be able to take a PlayStation 4 disc, put it in your PlayStation 5, and play it.
No.
It's going to be where you're going to go to the store, pay to re-download a PlayStation 4 game and play it on your PlayStation 5. The same thing they've been doing with PlayStation 3 games on the PlayStation 4. And it looks like that's going to be the same thing going on over on the Xbox side. Again, if you buy one of the big games coming out right now on Xbox One, like FIFA or Madden or whatever, you're going to put that into your Xbox Series X, and it will download the digital version of the game for that version of the console. You'll be able to play it. But as far as playing original Xbox games or Xbox 360 games, you're just going to have to pay to re-download a version of the game that it will emulate to play on the system. You're not going to be playing off the disc.
However, at least Xbox is getting a bunch of older games. PS5 said it's basically only going to be PS4 and a few select PS3 titles.
But, I mean,
I know.
That's... okay, we'll give them credit for at least going back a little further into their library. That's at least better of them. But at the same time, that's not backwards compatibility.
Nope.
They keep saying backwards compatibility. That is not backwards compatibility. Backwards compatibility means I'm taking the old game, putting it in the new system, and the new system plays the old game. That is backwards compatibility. That is not what's happening here. What's happening here is they are emulating the games running on the old system on the new system. They are not actually playing the old games. So, I cannot take my PlayStation 2 version of Amplitude and put it in my PlayStation 5 and play it. I have to pay to re-download a PlayStation 2 version of Amplitude if they support it on there. And that's not what I want. Because I have games on the original Xbox that I would love to sit and play again. My original Xbox has died. I replaced the drive in it, and it died again because I've played it so much. It's hard to get drives. You can, solder on new lasers and whatever, but that's beyond my abilities. I'm not doing any of that. I can replace a drive, but then you have to reflash the motherboard, and it's a huge, horrible thing on the original Xbox. I hate it. And it's terrible, and I wish there was an easier way to do it, but I want to play my original games off the disc on the original system with the original controller. I don't want to get a Raspberry Pi and download an emulation system and rip a ROM and play it off an SD card. I want my original system.
One thing I've noticed, and I'd like you to explain me how or correct me if I'm wrong, but have you noticed how whenever you put in a game disc nowadays, it has to download it? Whereas before, even the 3DS and DS, you just put in the game card, you're ready to go. You don't have to wait for it to download anything. It's just right off the card.
Okay, well, I know there's a couple things. First of all, a lot of what you're seeing is actually installation. It's copying information off of the disc onto the hard drive and installing it to the system because your modern console is working kind of like a computer. So it's not just streaming off the disc. It's actually installing parts to the hard drive of the system. But then, generally speaking, game companies are so desperate to announce in advance when a game is going to be available and then make sure they hit that deadline by shipping out a game that's not quite ready. No. It's almost ready, but not quite ready.
Day one patch.
So a lot of times, day one, you have a patch that you have to download.
Like if Fallout 74's, 50 gigabyte day one patch?
and some of those are like that. Some of those are just a matter of There's just some bugs, some tweaks, and whatever, some last minute changes. A lot of times in sports games, especially, you've got players who got traded or got injured or something. They're not on the roster, so it's downloading updates to the roster and that kind of stuff. But yeah, there are some things, and especially if you've got online play. If you're going to be doing online versus stuff, it's downloading and installing some of the stuff that goes along with getting that ready and putting in some of the anti-cheat measures and stuff like that that go along with those games. So games are a lot more intense than they used to be. There's a lot more to them than there used to be. So there is a lot of that goes on. But yeah, it's a little ridiculous nowadays on how much coming home with a new game, putting it in your system and being like, okay, well, I'll come back in an hour and a half when the game's ready to play.
That kills the enjoyment for me. Because a lot of the enjoyment is you come home, you put it in, all right, ready to go, let's play.
Right.
Because that's what I did for a while, because I mainly just played the 3DS and Wii U for a long time. Maybe some PS3 are in there. But I was mainly 3DS and Wii U. And those hardly had anything like that.
Right.
Whereas now it's like, all right, I'll go do anything else for another hour.
Right. And then like today even, you got an update for Doom Eternal.
Yeah.
And so then you had to sit and wait for that to download and install.
Yeah. Because the DLC just came out.
Right.
The day we're recording.
And that's one of those things. Sometimes they have a mechanic available where you can order it in advance.
Yeah.
So it'll download and install, and then on the day of release, it's just ready to go.
Yeah.
But sometimes they block that, and they don't allow that because they're afraid it's going to download and install early, and people are going to be playing it before they're supposed to. And so then they're breaking the regional lockouts and whatever, and it's going to make physical stores unhappy. Places like GameStop are going to be mad that people can play the game at 7 o'clock in the morning instead of having to wait until like 10 o'clock in the morning when the physical locations open, so that the people on digital have to wait for the same time as physical locations to open so that everybody's at the same
Which I'm not a big fan of. I mean,
it makes sense though.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand why they do it.
like, I'd much rather have like just a worldwide release. Just like, oh, it's June 24th. Everybody can play it now.
But digital also has its own pitfalls and drawbacks. Like, for instance, FIFA 19, when this came out on Xbox, I think it was on Xbox One, there was a bug. And so if you went into the Xbox store and you bought one of those packs of cards for like your Ultimate Team that gave you like, additional players and what trades and whatever, you paid $3.99 and you got one of those packs. You go to open the pack and it would say, you don't own the game, so it would download the game and give it to you. So I actually got FIFA 19 on the Xbox by buying a $3 pack from the Microsoft Store, and I got the full game.
Wow.
There was this on, I think it was 20. 20 did that. And then for 21, FIFA 21, and I think it was also on 20 as well, on PlayStation, if you downloaded the demo, you could download the demo, and then on the day of release, you could like go to the store and click on buy and then cancel, and then start the demo, and then cancel the demo, and then start the demo back up, and then the demo would get confused and think that you bought it in the store even though you canceled out buying from it, and it would unlock the full game.
Huh.
Or it'd unlock like unlimited hours on the demo or something.
Isn't that illegal, though?
It's a bug, though. It's a bug.
It's also on their official website. It's not like you're hacking it.
Right. It's not like I'm doing anything to break the system. The system is already broken.
All right. Well,
so I mean, it's an exploit.
It's morally wrong.
It's morally wrong, right? And that's something my wife, your mother, was like, you need to go out and buy a copy of the game, because paying the $3 to get the full game isn't right. And I was like, you're telling me to go out, but okay, I guess I have to go out and buy the game.
Hey, can I come along too?
If I have to, I guess I will.
Where's the downside?
But I mean, yeah, I mean, technically it is. But at the same time, who are you taking money from? You're taking it from EA. And
yeah, no, that's fine. No,
EA's the devil. So
they don't deserve that money anyway. They killed Plants vs Zombies. Oh,
EA and Activision. Like if you can skim some from EA and Activision, you're actually probably doing positive karma to the universe. Yeah. Like that's probably a good thing for the universe.
We're fighting a raid boss.
Sure.
You don't get that reference, do you?
No.
Okay, well, see, in video games like MMORPGs, there are things called raid bosses, where an entire group of people join forces and beat up a super strong boss.
Is that like the Leroy Jenkins?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. That's all you had to say. It's like Leroy Jenkins. It's like, oh, they were all waiting, but he ran in first by himself and started. Okay, got it. Okay.
Honestly, I forgot the thing even existed.
It's the best thing ever. I don't care how old it is. I don't care how long it's been out there. It's still the best thing ever. All right, anyway, guys, that's all we got for today. Don't forget, you can get a hold of us at our various email addresses, our Twitter accounts, Facebook pages, Twitch accounts, whatever. Find us on our website, or find us in the real world. We exist as actual people.
Don't find us. We don't like talking to people.
It's best to find him after he's remembered to put on deodorant, not before.
Okay, so never.
So that's going to do it, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Well, who cares?
Interesting.
Let's just go. We can always fix it in post.
Maybe.